Hey everyone. Hi. Hope you can hear me. My first time using Google Hangouts. So, although I was reading, I think they're about to get rid of Google Hangouts on YouTube. So, just as I'm beginning to learn, they're going to get rid of it. Of course. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Excuse me. Happy Saturday. Yay. And also, happy first weekend of summer. I'm so glad it's summer. I think I shared before, I currently live in the Northwest. And if you know anything about Northwest weather, it rains all the time here. Like, well, global warming, it doesn't rain as bad. Like back in the day when I was growing up, it used to rain all the time, all day. You were always wet and soggy. Now it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still pretty wet in this side of the country. It can get very depressing because it's always cloudy and so I am so looking forward to summer and sunshine and warmth and yeah, and I think it's gonna be a good summer this year. So I'm happy we're officially in summer now. Yay! And I apologize for the day delay in the live stream. I had planned to do this yesterday, but excuse me, I got so busy. I've just been running around. I'm preparing to leave town in a few days. Excuse me. Ooh. I'm leaving town. I'm going to Chicago for a work training. And I'm pretty excited about it because this is my first time going to Chicago. It's funny because I've never have been interested in visiting Chicago, and I don't know why. Because I know Chicago has a very rich Black culture and history, and a large Black population there. But I don't know, it's never really interested me. I don't know. There's some places you can take it or leave it as far as going to go visit there, travel there. Like that's how I felt. That's how I've felt about Chicago and generally the Midwest. Also New York, which I know is another place that's hyped for its culture. And Alaska, I've never had any desire to go to Alaska. Like, why would I purposely go somewhere that's cold? It's bad enough I'm in the Northwest. So I don't know. Those places have never really appealed to me. It's kind of similar to a friend who has no desire to go to Las Vegas. Now, personally, me, I love Vegas. Like, I love Vegas. Like, and I'm not a big gambler or anything. I mean, I like to do the slots once in a while, but for me, it's just more like, I guess, the glitz and glamour of it. It's just fun. It's like, it's as the saying goes, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's kind of like an opportunity to kind of like do things you would not normally do in your real everyday life. So I just like the vibe of Vegas, and it's cleaned up a lot over the years. It still has that kind of gritty side to it, but it's not as I think scary people might think it is there. I think that's what my friend thinks. It's like, oh, it's kind of dirty place, whatever. But actually, they've cleaned up Vegas a lot. It's a lot more family friendly, as much as a place like Vegas can be. But there's lots of things to do. There's shows, and I would love to go see Janet. I think she's still there, doing her residency there. Yeah, so I love Vegas personally, but for some people like my friend, she's like, I'm not interested. And so that's how I kind of feel about Chicago. I'm just like, I mean, I have nothing against Chicago at all. It's just, maybe what it is like places like Chicago and New York, they seem very overwhelming to me. And that's how I feel about Los Angeles too. They just seem so big, and I live in a major city, but it still has a small town feel to it. So I think that's what it is. Some of it. And also too, I was thinking about it. I really have no connections to Chicago. Like my family is from the South, where we come from the deep South. So I have, the bulk of my family is in the South. and I have some people on the East Coast. So yeah, we're mostly in the South or the East Coast or the West Coast. I really don't have much ties to um, the Midwest, to like the Chicago area or anything. So that's why I'm pretty excited that I'm going specifically there for work. It'll be I'm going for a specific reason, and my coworkers is going with me. They have some ties to Chicago, so it's like I'm going to a place. I'm going there where I have a hotel and things will be paid for me, and I have someone who kind of knows the area. So it's not like I'm just going there willy nilly or anything. So I think that's why I feel like pretty excited about it, because it's an opportunity to explore the city, something I probably would have never done on my own. So I'm looking forward to my Chicago trip. And of course, as I've been preparing for my trip, of course, being the book lover that I am, and this is a book YouTube channel, reading channel. Of course, I wanted to bring a book with me for my travels. And it made me think a lot about the Paperback, book, and how it's the perfect traveling companion. Because with the Paperback, you can easily put it in your carry-on bag, and it's just something you can read to pass the time away while you're traveling. Like, for example, I believe on my way back from the training, I have like, I think, 6-7 hour, something ridiculous, layover in Chicago. It's ridiculous. So having a good book to read is going to help me pass the time for sure. So like I said, I was looking for a good book to read for my trip as I prepare for my trip, and I keep a list of books that I haven't had an opportunity to read yet, but I want to read. And so I was looking through my list, deciding what did I want to buy for my trip, and I saw Terry McMillan's her most recent book she published, I Almost Forgot About You. And I'm a big fan of Terry McMillan's work. Unfortunately, Terry McMillan, she doesn't get a lot of respect and a lot of shade these days. As a she doesn't get a lot of respect as a writer. Excuse me. And I think a lot of it has to do with her situation with her ex-husband. That the book How Stella Got Her Groove Back was her meeting her ex-husband was the inspiration for that book. And if you're an old head like me, if you're a Gen Xer, someone in 45, I'm 45. So if you're 40s and up, you probably remember a lot of that drama. It was, I want to say, the mid 90s, late 90s, when she had met her ex-husband, and they had went on Oprah. It was just a lot of drama that happened between her and her husband. So I think, a lot of people have held that against her, have used that to make fun of her. Because the thing about Terry McMillan, when she first came out, a lot of people accused her of being like, a black male basher. They said her books bash black men and stuff. But really, she was just, I never got that from her. She was just writing about the ups and downs of black relationships, love relationships between black men and women at that time, especially. So I never saw it as male bashing. That was just her experiences and some of the experiences of her black female friends. But personally, I'm a fan of Terry McMillan. And the thing about Terry McMillan, much like how Spike Lee helped renew interest of black films in the early 90s, Terry McMillan did that for black literature in the early 90s. She helped revitalize interest in black books, particularly stories on black women. She really helped open up the pathway for black women writers during that time. Because there were still people like Toni Morrison and Alice Walker, et cetera, who were out during that time, but they tended to write about a specific time in Black life. Usually like the 1920s, 40s, those times. Whereas Terry McMillan and other Black women writers of the 90s focused more on the contemporary Black woman, and particularly Black women who were highly educated, who were professional, and usually middle to upper class. She really helped kind of usher in like a different kind of image, a different type of representation of Black women and Black womanhood that wasn't really being talked about or written about or shown at that time. So I give her props. I mean, you know, sometimes looking at her, reflecting on her books now, it can be a little cringy because her books. The new thing now, particularly with a lot of younger Black women, a lot of millennial Black women, they talk a lot about Black women not being involved in like struggle love, quote unquote, relationships, and demanding more from their partners if their interest is Black hetero relationships, their Black male counterparts, not just accepting Black struggle love, etc. And when you look back on some of Terry McMillan's work, it kind of borderlines into that a little bit. Like her book Disappearing Acts is basically a struggle love storyline. So some of it's a little cringy, but I think overall, personally, from what I've taken away from Terry McMillan, she was just trying to write about a specific type of Black woman and a specific type of challenges she tends to face in her life, which usually were like more educated professional Black women, and the trials of tribulations they may have in when they're seeking love in relationships. So actually I wanted to go onto her website and share with folks. Let's see. I'm just kind of playing around. It's my first time using Google Hangouts for the representation. Let me see. Oh, there we go. I'm hoping everyone can see. But yeah, this is Terry McMillan's website. And of course, everyone knows Terry McMillan from her book. Let's see if I can find it. Waiting to Exhale. Most people only know about the book via the movie. Of course, it featured the late, great Whitney Houston, Angela Bassett, who I love, and who's aging like fine wine. What are you doing, Angela? But she has money too, so we always have to remember that these people who age very well, they also have access to resources the rest of us don't have. But I think even if she didn't, she probably would age fine. She's beautiful now. Still beautiful and getting more gorgeous. I believe she's in her 60s now. So you have Angela Bassett, you have Whitney Houston, you have Layla Rashawn, and then who was Loretta Devine. Hope I'm saying her last name correctly. But yeah, so of course everyone knows the movie, but to the point where they usually forget about the book. But Waiting to Exhale is based on the book by Terry McMillan, and that was like her first big major breakout was was Waiting to Exhale. And actually it's funny because I like Waiting to Exhale, but it's not actually my favorite of Terry McMillan's. I actually liked I want to go through a couple of my favorite books by McMillan. I actually liked Mama. I believe this is actually, maybe it did come after Waiting to Exhale. But I actually liked Mama. I can't honestly remember specifically what the storyline was about, but I remember it was about a Black mother, and I believe she was a single mom, and just her experiences as a Black mother, and Black motherhood, and deciding what she wants out of her life. And it tends to be a big recurring theme of Terry McMillan is basically her characters are just trying to figure out what do they want from their lives, trying to ways to get out of a rut or find a new path in their lives. But I remember I liked Mama. I don't specifically remember what happened, but I remember I really liked it. Another favorite of mine from McMillan is, let's see. I still got a groove back, I think, as I mentioned before. I really liked this book. To me, the reason why I like this book a little bit more better than Waiting to Excel, because it was more fun. And Terry McMillan actually, she helped, inspire Black women to travel with this book. Because if I remember correctly, because unfortunately, the movies kind of like overshadowed the books. So I remember the movie more. It's more imprinted in my mind, but it was based in Jamaica, or she travels to Jamaica, and that's when she meets a young man and falls in love. And as I stated earlier, it was inspired by a real life, Terry McMillan's real life love relationship with her ex-husband, who was way significantly younger than her. So it touched on a lot of things about travel, as a Black woman traveling, falling in love, being, at the time, I don't think people really use this word anymore, but at the time, it was like being a cougar and, having relationships with very younger men and all that stuff. But the biggest thing I remember about How Stella Got Her Groove Back was like it really encouraged Black women to travel more and get their passports and just go out and see the world. And I really liked How Stella Got Her Groove Back. And of course, the movie, it introduced us to Taye Diggs, who everyone I remember just was like, oh. And now, now we realize, Taye Diggs is kind of a flop when it comes to, Black women. But at the time, it was like, oh, Taye Diggs. The movie was like really, and the movie is very beautiful with the Jamaican, the background, and the culture. So yeah, so I really like How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I actually, if I pick between How Stella Got Her Groove Back and Waiting to Excel, I would put How Stella Got Her Groove Back first. But Waiting to Excel is definitely what McMillan is known for, and it's a classic book as well. But I really liked How Stella Got Her Groove Back, because it made you think about traveling and seeing the world and just doing things out of the extraordinary that, as Black women, we hadn't really thought about or talked about or was never really represented before. So McMillan really helped kind of push that the idea of traveling and going out there into the world with her Black women readers. So I really liked How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I also liked The Interruption of Everything. And once again, I can't really remember. I'm getting old, y'all, but I can't really remember specifically the storyline. But once again, like I said, McMillan, she tends to write about Black women characters who are like at a point in their lives where they're like, reflecting over their lives and thinking about, what is the next step. And I've noticed too with McMillan's latest work, that she is, well, when I was researching McMillan and seeing where she is at now, doing in her life, I was shocked to read that she is almost 70 years old. I was like, oh my goodness, because when I think of McMillan, I think of her as this young woman. Well, she probably was in her 30s when she first came out, but because I was there at the start of her career. Like I said, I'm old. I'm 45, so I remember, when she first came. Like I remember vividly when she first debuted in the hoopla over Waiting to Excel. I remember there were so many articles written about Black women and love. Like it was a really big thing in the early 90s because Black women hadn't really been talked about in that way before then. So she, so I think of her still in that way from like the early, 90s, but like everyone else, she's grown older too. So she's almost in her 70s now. So I was like, wow, and so I think that's why, reading her most recent works, you're starting to see, because when you in your life, you start going through these phases, like when you're in your 20s, you're just getting out into the world, just trying to figure out, what you want to do, you're usually partying or, you're just being young. You think you'll be young forever. You really do. I can't believe I'm, in my 40s now. Like that just blows my mind sometimes. Like, because it just time goes really fast. So don't take your life for granted because it really does go fast. So in your 20s, you're just trying to figure it out. Then you get to your 30s and you have a little bit better idea of who you are and your personality, and you get a little more, as the young people say today, you start getting more into adulting. Although actually, honestly, I don't care too much for that word, but as the young people say today, you start adulting, you start getting a little more stable in your life. You have a little bit better idea of what you want from your life. Then there just comes this time period where I don't think people really use the term as much these days, but there was one point where, it was like your late 30s, early 40s, you start having what they call the midlife crisis. You start you start kind of panicking, like, oh my God, I'm almost in my 40s. You start panicking. That's when you often see people kind of reverting back to their 20s or acting like they're back in their 20s. They start partying or buying a sports car or, going to get plastic surgery. People start kind of freaking out like, oh, I'm getting older. But then there becomes a shift again when you get to 45, like my age, 45 and up, you kind of shift again. You're like, I think people kind of calm down again. They're like, okay, like it's not so bad, especially these days, being in your 40s, it's not, I'm not going to go as far as to say like being in your 40s, like, I'm not going to go as far as to say like the 40s are the new 30s or because I kind of, that's ridiculous. Like you can physically even feel the change. Like I get so tired now and I'm so sleepy now. And, I'm content with going to bed at 8 o'clock. I have no desire to be on clubs and like none of that crap. So I would never go as far as saying like the 40s are the new 30s at all whatsoever. But the 40s now aren't like how they used to be. You're still really young. Like the 40s are pretty much basically are Gen Xers, which I am. I'm a Gen Xer. Like 40s Gen Xers, we are the generation of people who we are the generation of like, we didn't grow up with social media or anything, but we are the start of social media and the internet. And because I remember having AOL dial-up. So, we're the start of a lot of those companies like Microsoft and all those Apple and all those were started by Gen Xers. So Gen Xers are kind of unique because we didn't grow up with social media, but the internet and technology doesn't scare us as much as baby boomers because we were at the start of it. And then, like I grew up with hip hop, I always say I grew up in the second wave hip hop, what they classify now as the golden age of hip hop. So 80s, the late 80s to early 90s. I grew up with hip hop music and, so 40s now aren't the same as it used to be. So we still have that Gen Xers. We tend to get ignored a lot because we're such a small population compared to baby boomers and millennials. But Gen Xers, we're not old. We still feel very young and still that we have a lot to do in our lives. So the 40s now aren't how they used to be, but still there does become a point where, as you get, for reflecting on my life and thinking about myself really, like now that I'm 45, there's like, okay, thinking about that next point in my life, what do I want to do at this next phase of my life? Because I'm not going to be ever in my 20s again. I'm not even going to be in my 30s again. I'm not even in my early 40s. I'm closer to 50 than not. And actually, I'm so bummed because a couple of months ago, I got an invite from AARP. I was like, what? I'm about to delete the email. And I was like thinking, wait, no, actually, I believe AARP starts at 50 and up. I'm like, well, I do just got a few more years. So I don't know, I'm rambling, but basically what I'm trying to say is that at this point, that Terry McMillan is probably in her next phase of her life. I'm sure that it shifts once again when you get in your 60s and your 70s. So you see that being reflected in her writing, that it's another shift. It's no longer about, as opposed to her earlier books like Waiting to Excel, wherever, where it's like maybe a little more obsession about finding the right man and finding love and having a family, blah, blah. At this point, it's like, okay, they did all that stuff. Now what? Okay, I did find love. I did have the kids. I did have the white picket fence, blah, blah, blah. But it actually wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Actually, maybe that's not what I wanted at all. Maybe I really didn't want to. Like I said, these women, her characters usually tend to be very, highly educated or professional women. Now they're like, well, maybe I didn't really want those degrees. Maybe I didn't, So it's like they're this next step in their lives where they're like questioning all those other things they did that they thought would make them happy. Yeah. And so you're starting to see that. And I feel like what I feel like I'm getting from her more recent works is like, it's kind of questioning all those things she was looking at in her earlier work, like books like Waiting to Exhale and How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Like, it's like, okay, maybe those things aren't everything. Maybe it's okay just to be by yourself, or maybe it's okay to do something completely different with your life. And that's basically what her latest book is about. Let me see. I Almost Forgot About You. And actually, I've started reading it already. And it's really good. Terry McMillan's a really good writer. She's very witty. She's very funny. Like, I find myself so many times I'll be on the train reading her work and I'll just start cracking up. People start scooting away from me. They're like, is this woman losing it or what? But Terry, she's really funny. And also she's really great with dialogue. I noticed, like, she's really like, people talk about like how you would think people would talk. Like, it's not like when you read it, like, no one would ever say that. Like, she writes how people would actually talk, like, and then it's very like humorous and stuff. I think she's a really good writer. She doesn't get enough props, I think. And actually, I was looking through in the back of the book and everything, and there's a really good interview with McMillan, and she speaks about the fact that, because they asked her, what is one of the things you hate, what do people say about your work that you hate? And she hates that her work is classified as like chick literature, particularly Black women's chick literature, and that's kind of reduced to like, oh, women just writing about love and relationships. It's like, the lives and experiences of women in general, but especially Black women aren't really taken seriously. It's like, oh, okay, whatever, like, oh, that chick lit stuff. She's like, she hates that so much. And I understand, and I can see where she's coming from, because the thing about Macmillan's book, yeah, she's writing about love and relationships and all those things, but really, like, she's really more like looking at the issue of people trying to find out who they are, and self-reflection and self-love, and really thinking about what do you want out of this life. Because that's the thing about when you get older, because as you get older, you're getting closer to death. Like that. I mean, of course, obviously you can die at any time, but really, like, death becomes more real at this point. Like, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't really think about death. I mean, I knew it was a real thing, but it seemed so far removed from me in my life. But at this point in my life, death is like, it's like, it seems more real. And I think especially because at this point, you start experiencing more death in your life. Like, my mother passed away a few years ago. I've had some friends I went to high school with who have passed away, and death becomes more real. So you start really thinking about, like, what do you really want what do you want your life to, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind before you leave this world? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a religious person at all. I like to think there's something greater than myself out there. It's a big world out there. Earth is not the only place. It's a big universe. But ultimately, this just may be it. Like, this, as far as we know, this is just it. So, what do you want? What do you want to leave behind? What do you want from your life? How can you make the best? As a lot of the younger people say these days, how can you live your best life? But not just that it's only fulfilling for you, but can also be empowering and fulfilling and supportive, and giving back to others. Because yes, it's great if you have a good life, but do you just want to die only that you've been satisfied, but you haven't really, like, you don't want to leave behind people, particularly people in your life that you care about. You don't want to leave them behind with, nothing. You want to, pass on some kind of legacy. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I hope you're getting the point what I'm trying to get at, that, it's about thinking more beyond yourself, living your best life, but also how can you make it better for everyone else too. So you see that a lot more in McMillan's more recent work. That next phase of like, how can you get even more out of life? How can you genuinely, truly enjoy your life, So yeah, it's a good read so far, and I can't wait to see what happens to this character, where she ends up, and how it all pans out for her. But yeah, so this is the book I'm going to be reading, or I am reading, for my travels coming up. Yes, I just want to make a quick video. I've been rambling. I always ramble in these lives. I'm still getting adjusted to it because I'm more of a scripted person. Like, I have to have a little script and stuff. That's why I like doing the recorded videos. But yeah, I just wanted to see what other people were reading, or if you're doing any traveling this summer, and or if you've found a really good book on previous travels, a good paperback that you've read, or have you ever been at the airport? Like, if you're like me, I'm about to have this huge layover, and you're like, oh, let me go to the airport shop and grab a book, and it turned out to be a really good read. So yeah, that's what I was just hoping to talk about. But so yeah, basically that's it. I just wanted to talk about the greatness of the paperback. How it's, I just love paperback books because I like if they're small and they're durable. Like, hardbacks always feel like I need to be somewhere on a couch with a cup of, wine, with a paperback, you just throw it in your bag and read it on the go. It gets all raggedy and get coffee stains on it while you're out and about. So yeah, so this is the book I'm reading, and I hope everyone else will find a good book to read for your travels. And yeah, that's all. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. This is so confusing to me. I'm trying to figure out, like, I can't see people. And yeah, that's all. I think there's some paper. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. This is so confusing to me. I'm trying to figure out, like, I can't see people. And yeah, that's all. I think there's some people. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. This is so confusing to me. I'm trying to figure out, like, I can't see people. And yeah, that's all. I think there's some people. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm having some feedback. So yeah, thank you for listening to this video, and I will chat with everyone soon. Bye bye.